on to the Baltimore Ravens. We haven't pegged at 2 here, but it's kind of a mess once you get past the Steelers. I think even as a Ravens homer, Dan would admit that.
Oh, it's massive. Like I pegged them at 9-7. That's strictly because of Homer. Like I could see them going 8-8. That'd be my best guess. It'd be 7-9, 8-8. But I can definitely see your guys' 6-10s, and it just depends on how the offense fluids because the defense will be fine this year.
If they miss the playoffs, does Harbaugh get fired?
He's been on the hot seat, kind of. It's been lukewarm the last couple seasons, but
he got heated seats in his car.
Yeah, like
in Baltimore.
His Range Rover is now feeling really comfortable during the wintertime.
Yes, but it'll be too comfortable if they.
If he struggles again, if the team struggles again, yes, I think he'll be in the hot seat.
The wire will melt through and be exposed.
I love this show, The Wire.
For a split second, I didn't pick up what he was talking about. All right. Moving on to the Ravens, though. Let's first talk about Joe Flacco, as ugly as this is. Finished 37th in points per game at the quarterback position last year.
It's one of his worst years, which, granted, the difference between his worst and his best is not all that much.
Outside of playoff Joe, yeah.
He's super elite. So.
He does have slightly better weapons this year. Slightly.
It's better. It's not, I mean, in my mind, it's a lot better. But in terms of fantasy-wise, it's only good for one receiver.
Joe Flacco is a good enough quarterback to give you a receiver and a tight end that's relevant, and he won't be relevant himself, but he can give you some relevant pieces.
He'll have like 1 or 2 good streaming weeks, and then you'll hate when you play him when he puts up like 5 points.
Your quarterback will get hurt, and you'll run with Joe Flacco the rest of the year.
All right. So we're not loving Joe Flacco. I assume, James, you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah.
Even in Superflex?
Even in Superflex, yeah, I'm taking. And this is going to hurt. If anyone knows me, they're going to know that this is going to hurt for me to say. I would take Blake Bortles over Joe Flacco.
Oh, that's not even close for me.
Exactly.
No, that's far and along the right decision.
Yeah, I have so many people that I know that I communicate with on a regular basis that are Blake Bortles truthers. So I have to be the anti-Blake Bortles guy, and so it's hard for me to admit that. I'm going to hear a bunch of flack when people hear this. They're going to know.
I see what you did there, Flacco.
Flacco, yeah.
There's been a lot of puns today.
You guys got that. All right.
And by the way, I am. You can add me to that list of Blake Bortles truthers.
Probably on all of us, kind of.
He'll be wearing the Bortles jersey when we record the AFC South episode.
There's a Blake Bortles fathead on the shelf behind me, or not fathead, Funko on the shelf behind me.
Oh man! All right. Now I know.
All right. Now let's get into the speculation time. If Flacco gets benched or hurt, what do we think of Lamar Jackson?
I like him more.
Does he get the first crack at it?
Yeah, Ryan Mallett.
RG3.
Yeah, so Lamar Jackson.
I got to throw a little bit of fun in there.
I don't think RG3 makes the team.
I think he does because he'll be a good teacher for Jackson in terms of being a mobile quarterback and
they don't keep 3 quarterbacks though.
It won't be Ryan Mallett. That dude's fucking garbage. So yeah,
no,
it'll be
no,
Jackson
they don't keep 3. It's going to be Flacco and Jackson, I think.
Maybe they do.
I think they keep
in the interest of Lamar Jackson. Maybe they get rid of their 7th running back and keep a 3rd quarterback.
But maybe they need all 7 running backs.
Yeah, they might.
Terrence West is finally gone.
So I did rank Lamar Jackson. I don't think he sees the field this year unless Flacco gets hurt or the Ravens completely implode, though. I think they do try to keep Flacco out there as long as possible.
I think that if Flacco gets hurt, Lamar Jackson and his legs become very intriguing, if anything.
Strictly for his legs, not worried about his arm.
No one cares about his upper body. It's all about lower body this time.
No,
I'm not even starting Lamar Jackson. I'm starting Lamar Jackson's legs.
I think his arm's going to lag behind what his athleticism can do, and he's going to be that type of quarterback early in his career, and then the throwing's going to have to come along with it. But if he gets on the field, I think that he runs well enough to keep him relevant.
It's going to be like Deshaun Kaiser. I think for me, like you may not get the massive interception rate that Kaiser put up, but I think Jackson will be more known for his rushing ability instead of throwing for 250 and 2.
See, I was leaning more Tyrod Taylor.
That too, but I wanted to go with the rookie last year.
Hey, Kaiser put up 17.4 points per game last year.
He gave you QB 1 week, so I'm just saying that's where
that was with all those interceptions. And you know what? Still better than Joe Flacco.
It hurts, I know. I'm just kidding.
All right. Moving on to running backs here. Alex Collins is going to get top billing on this team for the moment. He was 22nd in points per game last season, but he was trending upward through the whole year, and by the end he was looking like he could be a true running back 1. What do you guys think of Collins? Where do you got him in your rankings?
Am I the only one that sees this kind of being a Murray McKinnon type of thing with Collins and Kenneth Dixon, as long as Kenneth Dixon keeps his nose out of trouble
I mean,
And his knees intact.
and his knees intact. Yeah. I mean, I kind of see it going that route because you're right. Alex Collins was amazing. Had a great breakaway rate, great juke innovation numbers. He's exceptional against light, stacked, and
you're like reading my notes.
base front. But
Stop cheating off Dan.
yeah, the one thing that he kind of lacks though is that receiving game. But Kenneth Dixon also, when he was given the chance, has flashed the ability to be an okay enough runner and great in space. So I could almost see this being like a maybe not the same volume, but Latavius Murray, Jerick McKinnon type thing from last year.
So Dixon on even weeks.
Yes.
Okay.
No, odd weeks.
Yeah.
Odd week. I'm sorry.
You got to
odd
copy
weeks.
the homework, but change it up a little
That's
bit.
right.
It's odd weeks.
So Collins was PFF's fourth ranked running back last year. It was 87.6. As Hopper alluded to all the great stats from before, he was also 11th best in just yards per carry as well. He finished, I think, as a RB2, but in the last, I think starting week 8 against Miami, he was the RB8 in PPR, leagues. So I think he's going to be fine. I have him ranked 20th. The ADP is the 402,
Yeah,
which is
Feels a little pricey.
it feels pricey, but I don't have a lot of faith in Dixon because he's showing no faith outside of when he plays, which is 6 games.
So this is on a tangent. Who do you have more faith in, Kenneth Dixon or CJ Procise, who just got some hype today?
CJ Procise.
Ooh.
I hate Rashad Penny more than I hate Alex Collins. That's what that's based on.
I think Collins is a better receiver than Rashad Penny, so I'm going to go with Hopper and say Procise.
He's definitely a better blocker.
He's definitely a better blocker. Because Collins isn't a terrible pass catcher. They just didn't really throw the running back towards the end of last year. I mean, Buck Allen, who was the pass catching back, had 1 reception, I think, each game towards the end of the season. Collins had 2 to 4. So it's not like they're getting a lot of volume there anyways.
No, not a ton, but I don't think that they stick with Dixon throw the crap.
We get you back, James?
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
You're good.
It's all good. I don't think that they stick with Dixon through all the crap without and don't use him. So
They love
I've got
him.
Alex Collins at 23. Keep in mind these are my way too early rankings. This is before I go through and project everybody out. This is just kind of a feel ranking. So you may slide up or down, by 5-6 spots. But
You're only 3 spots behind me, so I mean we're in the same vein. He's a low end RB2.
I got him right behind Lamar Miller.
Yep. I've got him at 17th, but he may slide slightly.
Yeah, I think I have them in the same, right around the early 20 range. But let me ask you guys, based on opportunity cost and what they're going to cost, would you rather have Alex Collins or would you rather have Kenneth Dixon? I personally, before you answer, I think I'd rather have Dixon just because of where he's going and what I can get him for. And if I see that committee type approach, I think I'd rather have him. What about you guys?
Well, Dixon's ADP is a 1405, so pretty much late
Not
in
drafted.
stash. She's pretty much going to be not drafted or drafted or towards the end of your redraft.
Now, that's before any possible preseason hype trains, but
There will be preseason hype trains around Dixon. I
Well,
promise that.
in a vacuum, it's Dixon, but a lot of those two will depend on team structure. If I go, for whatever reason, wide receiver heavy, if I'm picking it, maybe towards the back half of the second, but not at the turn, and I grab a wide receiver, or back half of the first, and I grab a wide receiver at a running back, and I need my second running back. Alex Collins is a guy who I am looking at around his ADP just because of the volume may be there. Now, do I like him more than Lamar Miller there? No, just because I know what Lamar Miller's volume is going to be. But I like him kind of in that same vein of, all right, well, I need a running back, and everything's going running back heavy, so most of them are gone.
Yeah.
yeah, and by the point when in the draft where you're having to decide to take Alex Collins, you're not going to know where Kenneth Dixon's going to fall. So it's tough to kind of make that call ahead of time. At the value, obviously, of course, I would take Dixon in the 14th. Like if I'm taking him like as the last pick before I go defense kicker, but
I've already got defense kicker by that point.
Jay Tuck.
Pretty interesting, though.
Round 9.
Real quick, in a redraft, you could really end up with both those guys, and the opportunity cost doesn't cost you much with Kenneth Dixon being that late. And really, you could get both parts of that committee. So that's kind of an interesting thought, with Baltimore being a run-heavy team. I know they signed some receivers in the offseason, and we'll kind of get to that. But that's an interesting prospect to me to be able to have both those guys just in case,
Woo, strategy.
all right.
Yes.
Shall we get to those receivers, by the way?
So let's go.
All right, so the big three names are going to be Michael Crabtree, Willie Snead, and John Brown running out of the slot. Rashad Perryman is there still somehow. I think he'll probably get cut before training camp.
You think Brown plays out of the slot over Snead?
That's how they currently have it on their depth chart.
Okay.
I think that Brown probably plays the other outside spot personally, but
That's what he normally played. But either way.
Either way, here's how I feel about this. Number one wide receivers in this office tend to thrive on volume. They usually end up at about 120 plus targets. It's a near lock for that role. That's Crabtree's role, in my opinion.
Not even close.
Yeah, I think the worst the number one receiver in that offense has had is 92 targets in the last 5 years. The interesting thing about Crabtree, though, his production premium was actually higher last year than the year before, which really blew my mind. But his separation and some of his other metrics were a little bit down. He's kind of a cautious, I went running back heavy type of wide receiver play. But I think he'll have the volume there, and I think he'll have the opportunity to kind of give it a last hurrah like we saw Steve Smith do in Baltimore and some other guys to be in that mid to high wide receiver too.
Speaking of Steve Smith and high volume, his first year with Baltimore, 134 targets.
Yep.
You go back, look at Anquan Bolden, who averaged 109 targets those 3 seasons with Baltimore. His highest was 112. I mean, he's going to get at least 120 targets if he stays healthy. John Brown, I like in like deep leagues as maybe a deep stash, just because if he stays healthy, he can be utilized as a deep threat with Flacco's huge fucking arm. I don't have a lot of faith in Snead, but
see, I'm the opposite, and James, I want your thoughts on this too. So Snead is a year removed, basically a suspension kind of injury riddled year away, removed from having 2 pretty solid fantasy seasons. He ends up with some fresh scenery in an area where you've got John Brown that can't stay healthy, Rashad Perryman who's done nothing, and then a bunch of rookies.
yeah.
And your number 2 receiver in this offense is usually worth about 80 targets or so. So my thought on Snead is that his current ADP is nearly undrafted.
They're both undrafted right now.
So my thought on Snead is that if I need a dart throw, he's one of my favorites.
I got both him and Brown ranked pretty much in the same spot. I made both notes saying that I think there's some deep stash value to him in deeper leagues. So
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think Snead really just kind of the coaching staff lost faith in him, obviously, after that 4-game suspension, and then he had to work through an injury last year. I think last year was just a mess for Willie Snead, but I think we've seen some potential out of him, and I think in this offense, he could definitely be that guy who ends up getting some of those targets from Flacco. I think somewhere around 70 to 80 targets is a reasonable expectation for him. Now, John Brown, to me, worries me a little bit just because, I mean, then you have the sickle cell, and he's got some other health issues too, where it just seems like, there's always something kind of keeping him off the field. He definitely has that high upside, and I think he has a role, but I think his role is more of a deep threat. So depending on what I'm looking for, if I'm looking for a consistent contributor, a guy who I think could get me 5 to 6 receptions a game, I think I'd take Willie Snead. However, if I'm looking for a guy who I think, can give me that big play every now and again, I think I'd take John Brown. I'd lean towards Snead just based on, I'd like that consistency of a guy who can have, 4 to 6 catches a game and can be a bigger part of that offense and see some more opportunities. So that's where I would go. But I could definitely see both arguments. I think both of them have potential to have that value there for a fantasy wide receiver. That's obviously, I mean, like you guys said, ADP wise, you're getting them for nothing.
So I just want to get one last note in on Snead here before we keep beating this horse. The 2 years he did produce in New Orleans, he was over 100 targets. So unless you think he's kind of getting up to that, don't expect his any return to his New Orleans production.
you don't have to draft him.
Yeah,
Like,
I would.
You can put watch list. I think John Brown could be, depending on how late your best ball leagues go, could be an okay late round best ball draft pick.
So my note on both was not ranked, watch list at best for both.
Yep.
All right. Last player I want to talk about on the Ravens before we get to our beer review here, Hayden Hurst. Coming in, looking like he is going to be the tight end one in an offense that heavily features the tight end position. Hopper looks like he's going to puke to my left, so as usual, he'll kick us off.
Yeah, I don't agree with it. I think Mark Andrews is a better tight end. I think his training camp goes on, that the hype centers around him a bit more. He's younger. He's a better blocker. I think that maybe you see an Adam Shaheen, Trey Burton light type of situation where they just cut into each other enough, but I don't see a scenario where Hayden Hurst is just it. He doesn't block well enough to just be it. He's not Dennis Pitta.
He's got the first round capital to him. I know that, but he's also a rookie tight end, so I'm not putting any faith in any of these tight ends to begin with. But Hurst is versatile. When you watch his film, he lined up as a fullback, lined up as a inline tight end, lined up as a move tight end. Something that Andrews played mostly a move tight end role. I prefer Hurst in redraft, but I prefer Andrews in Dynasty. But I wouldn't take either of them this year anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Hey, we're going deep. We know.
I know.
We are in a 2 tight end dynasty league.
Hurst could.
There we go.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with what was just said. Yeah, if I'm in a redraft, I'm taking Hurst. In a dynasty, I'm taking Andrews. I think Andrews has the higher upside, and I think for fantasy purposes, I think what he does kind of fits a little bit more to what you're looking for. You're looking for obviously pass catching and touchdowns, that sort of thing. I kind of just feel like he's going to end up being on the field more as things go. But there is an argument to be made. Hey, the draft capital was spent on Hayden Hurst. They're going to give him every opportunity to win that job. So I think early on, you probably see Hayden Hurst an awful lot out there.
It was stupid.
He's been.
We don't disagree, but it's too late now, so we're going to roll with what we have.
Yeah.
Can't go back.
Thanks,
It's
Baltimore.
too late. All right. Enough about Baltimore.
Yeah.
Sure.
How do we think they're going to finish?
You
said 9-7.
That was a homer pick.
8-8.
8-8 probably.
I got them for 6-10. I don't like this team.
Yeah, I have him at 4-12. I am really low on this team. So
Is that because you're just really mad, being a Browns fan?
No, as a matter of fact,
I'm
honestly, I'm a Steelers basher. So the Ravens really don't stir my ire up quite as much as the Steelers. But I can't get behind Joe Flacco this year. I can't get behind some of these weapons. I'm taking a hard pass on this team, but I definitely think defensively they have potential. So who knows? We'll see if they can parlay that into some more wins.
I mean, I can't get behind Joe Flacco or most of his wide receivers any year, and they still somehow find a way to be in the back end of the wild card race most of the time.
That's a good point.
They'll disappoint me like they always do, at least
right.
since 2012.
All right.